Welcome to Beyond This, the podcast where we talk life, growth, and spirituality without the fluff. I'm Matilda, and here is where we dive into real conversations, deep reflections, and the insights that help us live a more connected and magnetic life. If we haven't met before, I am a professional psychic medium based here in Australia. I have been doing this for well over 2 decades, 20 years, plus some change. And I like to help prepare people. I don't always give good news. I don't always give the predictions that people want to know. But I do try and prepare you as best I can. Today, we are going to do a bit of a deep dive into grief and how it affects everybody, but in very different ways. I'm also going to talk about judgment and how judgment and ego can sit very close together. As always, at the end of every episode, I'm going to give you some new insights and predictions that I have been given by my team, my spirit team, to help prepare you for future events. I wish that it was going to be all joy and light, but there's some bumpy times coming, and it's important that you guys know what you are facing. I want to touch very, very quickly on events of last week. If you thought September was tough, wait until October. But what we did see last week was an assassination, and I will talk about what I have been shown around that a little later. But I made a TikTok saying that assassinations, deaths shouldn't be celebrated. That wasn't in any way me telling you how to feel. Many people are numb. Many people feel nothing. You don't have to give empathy to someone that you don't feel akin with. I just don't think any death should be the result of somebody giving their opinion. I didn't like Charlie Kirk. I didn't like what he stood for. I didn't like what he preached. I didn't like his modus operandus. None of it sat with me. I wasn't overly aware of him. I've become more aware of him as this and who he was and what he stood for as this week has gone by. People often asked me, very icky feeling about him. But if you want to have freedom of speech, if you want to live your life exactly how you live your life, you're always going to have an impact on somebody that doesn't agree with you. Now, Charlie Kirk promoted hate, he promoted discord, he promoted lots of things that a lot of people don't stand for. People on the left promote a lot of things that a lot of people don't stand for. Nobody should be at the risk of losing their life because of their opinion. That's just how I feel about it. In Australia, we are incredibly protected, and I've talked about this a lot, where someone like Charlie Kirk was around, he'd have been arrested a long time ago because it's hate speech. Doesn't mean to say that they deserve to be shot. Irrespective of his views on empathy and the terrible, terrible, terrible narrative that he had, I still think that if we are giving an opinion, we shouldn't have that risk. However, we also need to remember the multiple school shootings that happened last week. The poor children that are terrorized and frightened. And we also need to remember the victims of trafficking and the victims of Epstein that were ignored during last week's news cycle. Do I think that this is going to continue? No. I think that there holding on to it and saying that it's war now it's just going to die a death. Excuse the pun. But I may have lost followers, I may have lost supporters. But no matter how much I hate somebody, no matter how much I dislike what they say, I don't wish anybody to die like that. And I also want to make an apology that I thought and was told that his children were at the rally, and those are who I felt sorry for. They weren't at the rally. They've still lost a father, but they didn't witness it. But as I say, I'll talk a little bit more about what my team have shown me regarding this incident and how it does link into other things that have already happened. Let's talk about the main topic of today's conversation, because grief affects all of us. Grief is one of those experiences that we don't often talk about openly. I speak to grieving families every single day of my career. But I've also been hit by grief this year on a more personal level. One of my closest friends lost her daughter in January, as many of you would know. And I have been walking with her on that journey. People sometimes get uncomfortable about grief, but grief isn't something we can fix. It's not something to fix or rush or push away. Grief is love that no longer has a place to land. It's the echo of connection, and it's something we carry because of how deeply we loved. I'm also a firm believer, especially given the amount of connections I've made with spirit and those who have lost loved ones, that there is clean grief, which is often associated with an illness where you have time to grieve prior to death. You have time to prepare yourself. And then there's the shocking grief, the dirty grief, that a passing comes as a shock. Both are different, but both are just as painful as each other. And I get asked, why do you say 6 months to a year before you go in search of a mediumship reading? The first reason is be very careful about who you choose, because there's a lot of people that aren't going to give you what you really need. And the second, coming to terms with your grief, coming to terms with the loss and walking through the first birthday, the first Christmas, the first anniversary, all of those are part of the natural grieving process. And I've had experiences where loved ones have wanted a reading every week because they felt that it's their connection to their loved one. It's their way of almost having a telephone call with the person that they are grieving for. I always say that once you've experienced a mediumship, a decent mediumship reading, we should have given you the tools to see the signs from your loved ones, that they let you know that they are okay. So repeat mediumship readings aren't always helpful because your loved ones want to come direct to you. They don't want to come through me. They want to come direct to you. Grief isn't only about losing a person. It can be the loss of a beloved pet, a relationship, a job, a version of ourselves, or even a dream we had for the future. Grief isn't linear. You don't just move through 5 neat stages and tick them off one by one. Grief will come in waves. Sometimes it feels heavy and overwhelming, and other times it feels quite even. But it is ever present. from a spiritual perspective, grief is also a bridge. It's how our soul processes change. It's how love stretches beyond the physical world. There's often this real misconception about grief on how you need to be over it by a timeline. There is no timeline on grief. It moves at the pace it needs to. It doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it's numbness, it's anger. Sometimes it's even laughter in the moment, and that can surprise you. Remember that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. Carrying on with life is not dishonoring the person or the love that you had with them. It's bringing them with you, just in a different way. One of my favourite analogies for grief is it's like a glitter bomb. When someone first dies, it's like receiving one of those cards or gifts that's covered in glitter and it goes everywhere. It covers you, it covers the furniture, it's all over the floor. And as time passes, it disappears, it gets picked up and walked out of the house, walked out of the room. It gets swept away or vacuumed up. But then we will have an event, a birthday, a memory. And I liken that to moving the furniture in that room where the glitter once was and finding it just under the sofa, under the chair, under the ottoman as you move it when there's a birthday or a celebration. And it reappears. It is there always. And no one can tell you how to move through grief the best way for yourself. There's often so much judgment, especially in the days of social media, where people will turn to social media as a diary or a journal to tell others how they are navigating grief. The judgment can be unreal. We should really allow other people to process their grief the way that they feel best. Rituals can be really helpful and powerful. Lighting a candle, writing a letter to the person that you miss can be incredibly helpful. Creating a memory box and remembering to say their name out loud. Connection is important. Talking to people who understand. Learning to express yourself and what you are feeling. Leaning on therapy or reaching for spiritual support when you need it. But there is no set timing, there is no set script. After time, mediumship can really help. Now, I've talked before about the large evidential mediumship groups that I run. They're very similar to going to a theatre, and they're very spirit-led by those that choose to step forward. And some people can walk away disappointed from them. But the reality is that it's a proof of the afterlife. It's a proof that love is eternal, that your loved ones may have left their physical body, but they are simply in the next room. They are walking this life with you. Another common question I get asked a lot is, does my loved one miss me? And the truth is, no. I have to say, not really, they don't. Because they are with you and walking your path with you. One of the most beautiful things I've learned through mediumship is that love continues. Bonds do not break. The connection may change form, but it never ends. I've seen countless times where loved ones let us know they're still here. And as I say, they want to come direct to you. They want to show you that they're okay in your own personal and individual way that you understand. I've seen countless times through signs, through synchronicities, through a quiet whisper, through a knowing, through a smell, through a song, through a funny joke that you will hear. I did a reading this weekend for a lovely family, and their loved one came through with so much proof that they were around. They talked about a cruise that his mum had taken recently. Not just, hey, you've been on a cruise. He talked about the little yellow ducks that she found all over the ship that she was on, and that she'd given them to her grandson. He talked about the love he shared, about the clothing she slept with, about the photographs in detail that she had around her home. Proof that he is with her every single day. He also used a term which I have heard in the past, but he said it word for word, only for the mother to confirm the saying is something they had engraved on the box his ashes are in. And that was, if love were enough, I would still be here. Love is eternal. But that doesn't mean to say that you cannot feel the pain of losing someone. Grief will change you, but it can also expand you. It can make you softer, more empathetic, more present to the beauty of life. But that takes time. And anger and pain and confusion can be the steps that you will go through before you understand the growth and see the beauty. So if you are grieving right now, I want you to know you don't need to rush this. You don't need to be anyone other than who you are today. Your grief is valid. Your grief is sacred. And your grief is the reflection of your love for others and for yourself. Let's take a moment to thank our latest Patreon supporters. If you don't know about Patreon, Patreon is the platform I get to have freedom on. I get to talk about topics that aren't necessarily social media friendly. There are lots of extra podcasts, lots of extra information, predictions. I have a monthly coffee morning, which we had this morning. It was great. I had 60 odd people in there where you get to ask your spiritual and your current affair questions. If you are a member of the $15 and up, there's another Q&A where you get to ask things. We have the Broomstick Besties where you have another live where you get to ask questions. There are discounts to all of my readings and early access to all of my events, including my Are You Listening, which is all about your connection with your guides and how to build that relationship for the better. There is also a 50% off discount for the $15 and up on the 2026 Year Ahead event that I am having with Lauri Rivers. Coffee and channeling. No, it's not coffee and channeling. What are you talking about, Matilda? Charts and channeling. I don't know what I'm doing today. That is happening on the 11th of October. So that is sneaking up. You need to get your tickets because that discount expires on the 30th of September. 50% off is a really good deal. These events go on for hours. You will get a recording of it. We had over 400 predictions in our last event where 200 were proven. We have videos that we're working on to get those out to show you all. But you don't want to miss what's happening in 2026. You really do not. If you can be forewarned, that's what it's all about. So that's what Patreon is. I'm going to give a shout out. Remember, if you are a $5 member of the Matilda Messages, you sponsor this podcast so that there's no ads. And we are all incredibly grateful to you. So we'll do our thank yous. We have Becca Ling, Alicia Berry, Crystal Smith, Stephanie, Jessica, who has joined for 12 months, Tea in the Graveyard. I quite like that. I need an update. Do you often have tea in the graveyard? Let me know. I'd like to know about that. Maria Aubrey, Anaki's mum, who has joined for 12 months, Rochelle, LP, Liz Spears, Lana Inman, Riley Jackson, Joyce S., who has joined for 12 months. Don't forget there's great discounts on 12 months membership. Katie Richens, Mercury Queen, who has joined for 12 months. Jess, Beauty Cool Girl, RJ, Megan Molaris, Dawn, who has joined for 12 months. Margaret Culpers, Kelly Kirtley, Debbie, who has joined for 12 months. Susie, Melissa Speck, Jenny Rifle, Kathy, who has joined for 12 months, Karen Jones, Shelley Rose, Samantha C., Kelsey Adams, Emily Gorski, Nikki, Granny Shani, Teresa, Andrea, Jessica, Witches and Britches. There used to be a restaurant in Melbourne called Witches and Britches. Karen Tucker, Alison Showell, Ostasia, and I'm sorry if I have messed that pronunciation. I'm not even going to try your surname, but what a great name. Kate, Leonora Rivera, Holly, Kat, Patty, Debbie, Cynthia, Zoe, Cindy Taylor, and Emily Devine. Welcome. Please take a look through the collections. That's where you find all the juicy things. I'm going to work on a video over the next couple of days that is going to do a bit of a walkthrough. There is a walkthrough there to find everything. Pop a message in the chats if you do have a question about finding things. Don't suffer in silence. It can be a bit tricky to find your way around the app, but once you do, it is great. I will be on live at some point in the next couple of days, but I do have one specifically booked for next week. If major events happen, I jump on live, you get me front and center, and I answer your questions. We have a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. There are lots of laughs on our lives. If Patreon are listening to this, we would like the ability for those listening to the live or watching them to add memes, photos, things like that. We miss those. We really miss those. So please, Patreon, do your thing. But thank you all as new members. Remember to check out the collections because it's all for you. Before I dive into my predictions for the coming weeks, I want to talk about judgment. and how closely but not completely connected judgment is to ego. We all judge. We absolutely all judge without even noticing it. But if instead of judging, we learn to understand, what shifts when we bring compassion into the space where criticism usually lives? Now, I've made no secret of the fact that I come from a family who judged. The fear of giving your opinion or looking anyway, wearing whatever, doing whatever would end up in judgment, to the point that I would never go to a family member if I were in need. I dealt with every hard thing in my life on my own, because criticism and judgment would become before understanding. It made me hyper independent and also hyper self-critical of myself. But why do we judge? Our brains are wired to categorize things: safe, not safe, right, wrong, familiar or unfamiliar. Judgment often comes from our own wounds and insecurities or unmet needs. For example, someone being loud in public, we label them rude. But maybe they're just celebrating something that we can't see. But the cost of judgment will close us off. We stop listening. We stop connecting. It creates separation. The me versus you. The them versus us. If you are spiritual, judgment lowers your vibration and blocks compassion. I get reactive when people judge what I do for a living, because they're doing so often because they're scared of what they don't know or don't understand, because they don't like what I'm saying. And I will try and educate. And I need to feel more compassion for people that don't have critical thinking skills. So I'm going to try and lead by example. Understanding someone and where they come from and why they have that opinion doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It isn't a case of, I agree with you, so it's easier. It means you choose to see deeper. Curiosity as to why somebody behaves the way they do, instead of criticism. I wonder what's going on with them. I wonder why they believe that. I wonder why they react like that. Recognizing that everyone has a story and we rarely see the full picture. From a spiritual perspective, understanding is an act of love, and love can dissolve barriers. Think about how you react to someone's behavior before you react, before you speak. Are you seeing the whole picture? What are they scared of? What are they covering up that they don't want us to see? Replace why are they like that with what are they going through? What has led them to where they are? Another great thing is to notice your own triggers. What in someone stirs up something within you to react? We see it all the time on social media. There are some nasty, nasty, nasty people out there. And I am not by any means talking about my own content. I have spoken about this before, where I watch people be brave and strong and put content out there only to be criticized for what they're wearing, the look on their face, their hair, the mess of their house, what they're eating, what they're cooking, what they feed their children, what their children say, what their children's names are, what school their children go to, what house they have, what car they have, what they're speaking. The criticism and judgment always comes from a place of insecurity. Think about that next time someone criticizes you and tries to make you feel bad about yourself. Remember, Spirit doesn't judge. It sees us as a whole, even in our messiest moments. When we practice understanding, we align ourselves with more of a spiritual perspective. This opens us up to deeper connections with people and the unseen world. What would shift in your life if you replaced judgment with understanding? Not just for others, but with yourself. Imagine the relationships, the healing, and the freedom that could come from one simple change. Ego is a part of us that identifies with self-image, roles, labels, and survival. It's not bad. We need ego to navigate the world, but it can get overinflated or defensive. The ego wants to protect itself, be right, feel significant. The ego is often described as the voice of separation. Me versus you, us versus them. Sometimes it's better to be there than to be right. Currently, around the world, we are watching countries, communities be torn apart because government officials have a rhetoric that they want heard that is divisive. They are blaming the other people because they cannot look at themselves. They don't want to admit the damage they are doing. They don't want to admit their faults. They don't want to be wrong. They would rather divide nations than look at their own story. Be better than that. Lead by example. You may not agree with people who belong to certain parties, but unless you all learn to get along, you are looking at many, many years of division. Let's talk about what I see coming in over the next couple of months. Well, I said it was going to be bumpy. I said it was going to be like a roller coaster, and that it has been. Unfortunately, I feel like October is going to bring new challenges. But first of all, I want to talk about the Charlie Kirk assassination and how I feel around who is responsible, why they are responsible. I know the narrative is that they have a young man in custody. There was also a young man responsible for the Butler death. The Butler there wasn't a death, it was the attempted assassination. After the Butler assassination, I talked in depth on my Patreon, and I'm going to try and find the post and repost it over the next 24 hours. I talked in depth about the fact that I saw a dark web situation where people were being rallied to do certain things, to talked into, manipulated to behave in certain ways. And I still believe that. Do I believe that this young man is responsible for Charlie Kirk's death? No, I actually don't. I don't care what evidence they have. I feel like he's a fall guy. I feel like Charlie Kirk was assassinated because he was starting to speak out about the Epstein files. I wouldn't be surprised if his assassin had a military background. But I firmly believe that there is a far, far right group of people that are being manipulated online, almost like suicide bombers, to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. It will be uncovered, but not until next year, the end of next year. Could be sooner, but that's what I'm being shown. And there's a lot of people in power. I'm not necessarily talking about government officials, but people that are powerful that are using that underground web chat room type situation. I talked about this over 12 months ago, and I feel like the attempted assassination on Trump, I think that the person responsible for the attack on Trump Tower on New Year's, all of that is connected to this dark web situation. I also have been shown another attempted assassination on Trump. No, I don't think it's going to be successful. I don't want it to be successful, if I'm perfectly honest. They do not need to martyr him. How I see things playing out, Erica Kirk is going to have no luck in thinking she's going to lead her husband's company or whatever it is. And I think it's going to be a case of the whole situation is going to just die a death and quieten down, and people are going to be asking for more information. Head of the FBI, I think he'll be gone within a few days, 10 days. I think he will either resign or be made an example of. I think there's another resignation. I used the terminology 10 green bottles on social media and nobody understood it. 10 green bottles sitting on a wall, 10 green bottles sitting on a wall, and if one green bottle should accidentally fall. So I feel like it's one after the other of resignations, sackings within the Trump administration. I also feel that we are going to see a problem with electricity and gas supply in the United Kingdom over the next couple of months. Whether it freezes, it can't keep up with supply, it feels like there is an issue with that. I said this today on my coffee morning that I am surprised that Trump is going to the United Kingdom. It feels like there's a delay or a delay of events. Somebody gets sick, either Charles or him gets sick, or it just feels like there's something odd about it, whether it's delayed, whether it's security. I am not seeing it happening. It doesn't mean to say it's not going to. I've just asked, is it happening? I'm surprised they're flying Trump out, given the stroke he had last week. And yes, that was a public medical event that I predicted. He said he'd have a stroke in public. He certainly did. It was definitely a TIA, and he's having multiples of them. Australia. Premiers, 1 to 2 premiers resigning, leaving. I think Jacinta Allen is one of them. She lives up the road from me. At three roads back. And I feel like we're going to see some shocking water events in Australia. Maybe extra sharks, like 2 or 3 shark events in a day. A boat issue in Australia. I also see a helicopter falling from the sky in Australasia. So I'm going to cover New Zealand with that. It just feels like a helicopter falling from the sky. In the United States, there is going to continue to be rallies and discourse and agitation, shocking news regarding secrets to do with Trump coming out, secrets to do with Caroline Levitt, that's her name. I also want to say that a media outlet is going to face criminal charges because of something they printed. All right. That being said, that's about it from me this week. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for listening. Just a heads up, this weekend, I have an evidential mediumship group. It is a large event. It is spirit-led. There are chances for readings for the audience members. It's $50 Australian, which I think works out about $33, $34 US. You get to watch me work, opportunity for reading. You can ask me spiritual and afterlife questions. That is this weekend. I think it's Saturday night for the US. Link will be in my bio. So sign up for that. And I will, in the show notes, there is for the 2026 event with Lauri Rivers. That's about it from me right now. Have a wonderful week. It is going to get spicy. I want to add also, I do see things kicking off in the Middle East. Israel is going to retaliate or kick back I just see Iran being bombed again. I'm going to be honest with you. I also feel like there is going to be retaliation within the Middle East. I don't know whether I can't see exactly, but I am concerned about Yemen and that area, and I am concerned about Qatar. Going to give you that. And also I knew I had something else to talk about. I'm sorry. I got distracted. Eastern Europe. I told you that Poland would get involved with Russia. I think Russia is going to face a significant influx of bombings over the next couple of weeks. I am concerned that Downing Street may announce that they are sending troops somewhere. So be aware of that. All right, signing off for now. Thank you for joining me. If this episode resonates with you, please share, please like, please leave me a review. It helps me get into the algorithm and I can help more people. But grief is not the end of love. It is the proof that love is eternal. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take care.